Well, good afternoon, guys. And today I want to do something a little different and talk about all the different wildflowers you can find in Albion Basin. This is one of the most popular sites in the Wasatch to go looking for wildflowers. So I figured I just want to make a guide to as many species as I can that you can find here. Firstly, this one. This is Agastache urticifolia, commonly known as giant Nettleleaf Hyssop. It has opposite leaves, as is characteristic of the mint family Lamiaceae, of which it's a part. And there's not much else to say about it. It smells kind of pleasant, but also kind of gross. Also has, like most members of the mint family, a square stem, so if you roll it between your fingers, you'll feel the ridges. A lot of the wildflowers here, because it's been such a dry year, are starting to go dormant early, which is a bit unfortunate. I wish I could have filmed this video like a week earlier, but it is what it is. Another important wildflower you'll see here is this one. This is Delphinium occidentale, also known as the Western Larkspur. It is another very important one, as I said, and it's quite interesting because if you look at its flowers, they have this little spur that sticks backwards. It's a part of the sepals, and it's used to hold nectar for certain pollinators, so it kind of helps to specialize in which pollinators visit it, because not all will be able to reach the very back of it and get the nectar out of it. This is a member of the family Ranunculaceae, which is known for being quite toxic, and delphiniums are one of the more toxic members within the family. So, I mean, I was just touching it there, but I probably shouldn't have done that, and you guys shouldn't either. Now, this wildflower with these white petals is a member of the sunflower family Asteraceae. This is Eucephalus engelmannii, also known as Engelmann's Aster. Another very common species out here. Sometimes its flowers look a little bit purplish, but for the most part, they're pretty white. Speaking of members of the sunflower family, this is Erigeron speciosus, also known as Aspen Fleabane. There's quite a lot of Erigeron species you can find in Utah, including within the Wasatch, but this is the most common one at elevations around here. We're at about 9,000 feet in elevation. Now, one thing that's important about this members of the sunflower family is that when you see a flower like this, you're not looking at one flower, you're actually looking at multiple flowers. The way the sunflowers work is that they use multiple flowers and highly modified petals so as they appear to be just one flower. So I'll take a look at this again and show you what I'm talking about. Every one of these petals goes to one single little flower, which has one ovary in it, or one ovule I should say, which will become pollinated and become one seed. All these little things right here, these individual little petalless flowers, are, as I just said, also flowers. And that's very important to note. The sunflower family is one of the most successful plant families in the whole world. And yeah, I don't know what to say about that aside from the fact that it's just a very successful formula. It's certainly very successful around here. It's probably the largest plant family from the state of Utah. Now, one of the most common species I'm seeing out here is all this dead and dying stuff in front of us. I'm pretty sure it's for the most part one species, and that would be Helianthella uniflora, also known as the Rocky Mountain dwarf sunflower. Normally it'd still be in full bloom by now, but it's really being hit hard by this drought. So it's going to sleep early. It's already got its seeds pollinated, so unfortunately for this year you won't be able to see much more of it if you come up after this video is uploaded. You have to wait until next year to really see a lot of the wildflowers I'm talking about in full bloom, but this is another very common one up here. And I just like to see it. I love all the wildflowers around here. But there must be something special about it to be so dominant in this location. Interesting to see how some species are handling the drought a lot better. I think a lot of these would naturally start to bloom later, which is part of the reason why, like this Erigeron speciosa, which I talked about earlier. But there's a lot of stuff that's really just doing very poorly. Here's yet another member of the sunflower family. This is Heliomeris multiflora. It's known as the Showy Goldeneye. This one has opposite leaves, and it has smaller flowers that are yellow like many sunflower family members are, but they're definitely a little bit smaller, and the petals sort of curl backwards. I should say petals, I should be saying ray florets, because that's what you refer to the flowers with one petal on the outside of members of the sunflower family. The actual petal itself can be called a ligule. If this is all really basic stuff to some of you guys, I'm sorry, but I want to make this video accessible to more people. So I'm trying to keep things a little more basic, but also maybe kind of thorough too, so we can get a proper botanical knowledge. Now here is a species that is still doing well, but it's definitely past its bloom anyways. This is Polemonium foliosissimum, also known as the leafy Jacob's ladder. It is a member of the family Polemoniaceae, which is very prominent in the western United States. That's where most of its biodiversity is. And one thing that really distinguishes it from other species around here are its leaves, which are, so you'd say, pinnately compound. This whole thing is not a bunch of leaves, it's technically one leaf that is modified to look like it has a bunch of tiny leaves. Let's have a look at one of them. It's a little hard to tell the difference sometimes between a compound leaf and multiple leaves, but in this case, just trust me that it is. Its flowers, when they are in bloom, which is, it's currently gone to fruit, are white and only about that big with 5 petals typically. Really cool plant. Normally plants with leaves that look like that around here would be members of the pea family, but this one is definitely not a member of that family. Hopefully I can show you some members of that family a little later. One thing to note about this plant, if you're wondering why it's still so green when it's already gone to seed, is that it's probably trying to store up energy that it can use for next year. So it's storing energy in its root until it's basically too cold to do that anymore, at which point it will go dormant fully. And because of that, it will be able to get a stronger bud burst next year, or root burst, whatever you want to call it. It'll be able to have more energy to work with at the beginning of the growing season, essentially. Some more hits and classics here. Oh, now this large plant with compound leaves is another thing that isn't actually a member of the pea family, despite having pinnately compound leaves. There's a difference between so-called pinnately and palmately compound leaves. I will be showing you a species with palmately compound leaves later, but for now, this is Sambucus racemosa. It is a shrub commonly known as red elderberry. Elderberries are edible, but they don't always taste so great. There's another species of Sambucus in the Wasatch Mountains that grows at lower elevations. Racemosa, though, grows at higher elevations. It has opposite leaves and a very pithy stem. Its wood is very easy to snap. I'm not going to do it, but you shouldn't do it either, but just know that it's very lightweight and weak, essentially. But they can eventually go up to tree-like stature if they give enough time. Here we have another classic member of a sunflower family you can find in Albion Basin. I told you there were a lot of species in Utah that remember the sunflower family. This is Rudbeckia occidentalis, also known as the western coneflower. What's special about this one is that despite being a member of the sunflower family, it does still have the classic multiple flowers making one large flower-looking thing, but it doesn't have any of the ray florets, so to speak. It only has disc florets, the other type, without very visible petals. Each of those little bumps on this flower head, or I should say inflorescence, that's what we call a group of multiple flowers growing together. And the sunflower family, just as a side note, their inflorescence is called a capitulum. That is the specialized inflorescence of a sunflower family. But anyways, I digress. Each one of these little bumps is one single flower. And you can see that little pollen on there, so it's not done blooming yet. But when it is, it'll of course all go to seed. It blooms from, I should mention, it starts blooming down here and then slowly moves up to the top. And once it's done, you can easily knock the seeds out. It's kind of fun. They like almost shoot a little bit out of the whole flower head. It's a shame it's so dry this year. I really want to show you guys more flowers, or show them in their full glory. Oh wow, look at all that Rudbeckia occidentalis I'm walking through now. It's so fascinating how you just go through different zones of species, with sometimes not any explanation, because there's definitely patterns where species occur in nature due to different conditions, but sometimes it's not very readily apparent. Now here is another really great one. This is a species of paintbrush, Castellegia miniata. There's also Castellegia rexifolia, but this one I'm pretty sure is Castellegia miniata. Oh, that got really dark. What's cool about these is that they are actually parasites. For their roots, they attach to other plants and suck nutrients away from them. They can still make some of their own energy, as indicated by the fact that they are green, so they definitely photosynthesize some. They just like to take extra nutrients from other plants. It is a member of the family Orobanchaceae, which for the most part is completely full of plants that do this, and some that don't photosynthesize at all, so they are forced to get all their nutrients from other plants. Very cool guy. I love members of Castellaria. It looks so pretty. I think it's so fascinating their role in the ecosystem, being like little thieves. Here's some more of that Agastache urticifolia, or urticifolia. That's actually looking a lot healthier. You can see its mint-like flowers a lot easier, because if I didn't mention before, it is a member of the mint family. Okay, now that tall plant is something else kind of cool. That is Veratrum californica, also known as the false hellebore. It is a member of the family Melianthaceae, or actually I think it's Melanthaceae. I can't remember for sure. It's okay to be wrong in botany sometimes, though. I'm a little bit embarrassed by how often I mix up names, but I think those are two. It's funny, there's two families there's one called Melanthaceae and one called Melianthaceae. Either way, though, this is actually a toxic plant. All the other members of its family are toxic. Some people call it the corn lily due to the way its flowers look. It certainly looks like the flower stalk of a corn plant. And what's cool about these is that they only bloom once in their life. Most years they grow, they don't actually produce flowers, but then they're just basically storing energy for one great big bloom, after which the whole plant will die. But the cycle of life, or circle of life I should say, always continues no matter what. Now here is a member of the pea family Fabaceae. This is Lupinus argenteus. Well, I guess there's a chance it could be Lupinus serraceus. They're very hard to tell apart, and you'll be forgiven for calling Lupinus serraceus argenteus, because some people aren't even sure if they're separate species entirely. They're not fully convinced about it. Now what's cool about this one is that compared to most members of the family Fabaceae, which have pinnately compound leaves, they have palmately compound leaves. So this is all one leaf here with different lobes, and they're arranged in a fan-like structure, almost like the palm of a hand, hence palmately compound. That's what the flowers look like. This is a classic pea family flowers. If we were to look at them more closely and tear them apart, we'd notice that there's a few different types of petals. There's a banner, which is large and on top. There are wings, which sort of on the lower end and stick outward. And then there's two fused petals to make the keel. Really interesting stuff. Their inflorescence makes them look a little bit like Delphinium occidentale, but they're definitely not the same species. Just to be completely clear. Which you got quite a lot here. The wildflowers are definitely doing better on this lower slope. I wonder if it's because it gets a little less direct sunlight, so there's less evaporation typically. Which allows the ground to be moister for longer. Here is another favorite wildflower of mine. This is Caminurion angustifolium, formerly considered to be Epilobium angustifolium, or more commonly called fireweed. It is so named because it very quickly pops up in areas that have been burned. And it achieves this, it's always able to pop up in areas that have been burned recently because it produces thousands of tiny seeds every year, and they basically catch on the wind and get blown away to pretty much everywhere, and most of them won't germinate, but a few end up landing in places that were burned, which is great habitat for this plant because it doesn't like shady sites. It likes nice open areas with lots of growing space. So when they land in an area that's been recently burned, they can start growing very quickly. And will be one of the first plants to pop up in said area. Really cool species, I think. Now this plant with the funny looking leaves is Phalictrum fendleri. It's another member of Ranunculaceae, so it is also toxic. And really I just like to identify it by its leaves. One thing cool about this plant is that the species has both male and female plants. So one plant will produce male flowers with stamens, and another will produce female flowers with ovaries. You may have heard me mention ovary several times by now, or noticed it at least, and yes, flowers have a part that is referred to as the ovary. It gets pollinated, which then results in the production of a seed. The ovary becomes a fruit, I should also add, while the ovule inside of it becomes the seed inside the fruit. All flowering plants produce seeds, and all flowering plants always produce seeds, but every single one produces something that can be considered a fruit, and all true botanical fruits are produced by flowering plants. Now this guy with the weird pokey looking things is Geranium viscosissimum. There's two species of geranium you can find in the Wasatch, Geranium viscosissimum and Geranium richardsonii, and they're very hard to tell apart, so I'm just going to call this one Geranium viscosissimum. Commonly called crane's bills, or maybe stork's bills. I've heard both sometimes, to be honest, because after maturity their stigma, or style I should say actually, lengthens and forms a structure that looks like the beak of a bird with a long beak, I guess. That's what its flowers look like when they're just in bloom. Rather typical flowers. This is a fruit that's really interesting and special about this plant. Oh, there's some even better specimens of the flowers. There you go. A little stripy. I hope this video is easy enough to follow along. I'm just about at the end of Albion Basin now, so thanks for watching, guys. There are a few plants I didn't get to talk about. Quite a lot, actually. So do your own research when you come here. Bring a wildflower guide, maybe, and see what you can find, because there's a good chance you'll find some things that I didn't see, but hopefully this serves as a good springboard into some of the great wildflowers you can find in Albion Basin and in the Wasatch at large. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.